If you're a creator or influencer or trying to make money online in social media, you gotta go right now and watch this Netflix show, Muscles and Mayhem, about this old TV show called American Gladiators. And this show is all about how people get exploited by businesses whenever they start getting into something that's a little bit famous or has a little bit of money going on. And that is stuff that is happening right now with social media influencers that you need to be aware of. And watching this show will tell you everything about how Hollywood works and how producers work and how the kind of people who will start circling around you if there is ever something big and successful will act and what and kind of you can just watch somebody in real time getting screwed by a producer who from a big media company who was running their show. So what is American Gladiators? If you're younger, you have probably not, or maybe haven't heard of this, or definitely weren't watching it at the time. You can see these people up here doing their like fighting with giant like whatever these things are, like rods with little like styrofoam stuff on the end, and they're basically trying to knock each other off these platforms in this. But the show had all kinds of just random, crazier and crazier events, and the whole concept of it is that random people in America who thought they were athletic or thought they were like the big sports hero in their local town or just thought that they could go try to do something would go get on this show. They would kind of compete, kind of like American Idol or something, except for athletics. And then they would have these big, huge bodybuilder people, men and women who would then face off against them in these insane events, like running around in giant hamster wheel balls and like racing and like velcroing themselves to walls and racing on the ceiling upside down, attached to these things that like drag them on the ceiling. Just strange events. And they would, mostly get knocked around by the bodybuilders for the entertainment of America. What's this show on Netflix? Because this show lasted for a while. It was the biggest show on television for several years. Kids loved it. I loved it as a kid. I was more a professional wrestling kid, but American Gladiators was very fun as well because it was actually real. Although I thought at the time I thought both were real. Do not believe that if you're younger, it is not real, and don't do what you see these people doing because you can injure yourself. I know there's some of y'all on YouTube who are under 15 or whatever. But so what's this Netflix show? Let me show you the Netflix show. This is what it's called. This is what you should watch. It's called Muscles and Mayhem. It is not actually animated for the most part. It looks like a cartoon here in the photo they're showing. It's mostly a documentary footage. So they're showing the people who are the real American gladiators, and who were, it's all these kind of people that they've made cartoons of here, who were on the show and got basically no money despite being the biggest show. Like that's what's crazy about this was when you watch this documentary, they interview all the people. They're now older. You can kind of see what happened to all the people who were beating up Americans. Not really physically, they weren't actually beating them up, but they were just beating them. And they got nothing. Like they got nothing because the producers of the show were the most ruthless, cutthroat people on the planet, and they forced them to sign some really bad contracts, like just insanely bad contracts. They go into this a little bit in the documentary. I think it's Nitro, who's they all had names like his name was Nitro on the show, and so Nitro is talking about how these were the worst contracts ever in history. They like sign them their contracts that say for one they have no like payment of health insurance, and on this show if you watch this documentary they get injured so much, and what they're doing like they're basically making up sports in real time that have never existed, and so nobody's like safety tested attacking each other on the top of a giant platform with a joust stick. Nobody is safety tested running in a hamster ball or throwing people onto walls with Velcro or whatever they're doing. It's all every show they're coming up with new crazy things, and then they start going around the country doing this in arenas, and so they're just like beat up like you can't believe. They're kind of like icing themselves and wearing all this stuff after the show, and just every night they're getting injuries. They're constantly getting injuries, and no one's paying for them to have health insurance. And if they get an injury, they're just cut because the contracts let them just sort of cut anybody at any time. The producer has all the rights in the world. They paid them a flat fee based on the first show when it wasn't making money, like the pilot. And then for the rest of the series, they're just getting paid the same rate. So they get nothing. They don't get merchandising rights, which is like when there were action figures with these guys. I think I had some action figures with these guys. They got nothing out of that. They got nothing out of like however many billions were sold. They got nothing. And the contract said it lasted forever, which is one of the big things that they are going off on in the show, that you have this forever contract for basically making nothing that stops you from getting any kind of rights to anything. And one of the gladiators, Nitro, makes the comment, "Oh, this is illegal now." So I want to, first, real quick, going to show you something about TikTok. If you're on TikTok, because this is why I think creators need to watch this show and see how people treat you if you're not careful. So this is a screenshot from my TikTok account. I recently hit over 1,000 followers or whatever, and so when you do that on TikTok, you can do these things called lives, which is, I mean, everybody probably now this is for the older people. The people who watched American Gladiators don't know what I'm talking about. The people who have no idea what American Gladiators is know exactly what I'm talking about. If you are older, if you were in my generation watching American Gladiators or older, then you may not know how TikTok works. So they can go on a live. A live is just you're live instead of recording it like on YouTube, and they do battles. A battle is just a bunch of, well, the short version of a battle is it's a bunch of people going, give me money, give me money, give me money. You got two guys doing that on either side, and then they just keep saying, give me money, and at the end they go, I won, I got the most money. That is the younger people are going, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what these are, because they are. They'll say, give me a rose, and it's like the person donates a rose, and at the end, and that's pretty much all the ones that I scrolled through were just people doing that over and over. The most boring thing on the universe is perhaps entertaining to their fans or something. There's some who do things like, oh, if I win, I'll do a prank, or if I win, I'll dump this ice on my head, or whatever they're doing. And those people maybe deserve a little more of the money they're getting. But if you're one of these people doing this, or you're one of these people on YouTube or whatever, there are people circling around who call themselves agencies or managers or whatever. And if you start looking, so TikTok Live, when I got onto this, you can see what this screen is here. It's in TikTok. So this is like in your app. There's a thing for what's called agencies. And you can, if you read this, it says they're kind of saying like, okay, like an agency is a third party entity independent of TikTok. They provide live skills training, content support, commercial opportunities. So supposedly what they're going to do is like, okay, this agency, it will like hook you up with invitations to these battles, or hook you up with better like one-on-one lives with people who are sort of have more followers than you, so you can get more clout and more attention and more money. And so that's obviously sounds great. But what does it do in the app right here? There's this invitation code, and you can see that this says TikTok will not be involved in any agreements between the live creator and the agency. And then it says at this number 3 at the bottom, so you put an invitation code in that the agency sends you. If you accept the invitation, you agree to a management relationship with the agency on TikTok. And this could create a contract with you. This literally, people on TikTok who don't have any idea how contracts work, just got live or whatever, are probably getting sent contracts. And I've seen some videos on TikTok, if you search for it, people saying they got real bad contracts with their live agency. And it's not just TikTok, it's YouTube, it's everything. Like there are people who will say they'll be your manager, and they will have stuff in those contracts that is so horrible. Things like power of attorney. That is a total disaster to give someone, because power of attorney means they can just sign agreements for you and sell stuff for you, sell your stuff, buy a house for you. There are managers who have done stuff like this, like bought houses, lived in them. Go look at what happened with like Britney Spears. There are abuses all over from this stuff. And why does American Gladiators have anything to do with this TikTok stuff? It's because these guys went through an early version of this. And if you watch their show, you're going to see and look through these contracts. They had these horrible contracts. So the question is, are they enforceable now? Because that's what you should be wondering if you're an influencer. The Nitro from the American Gladiators said, oh, our contracts were so bad in the show. He's like, they're so bad that they're now illegal. So are they really illegal? He didn't tell us everything about what's in there. The things he was really complaining about is that it's perpetual forever. But would that even be illegal now under current law? So Nitro from American Gladiators is not a lawyer. So there may be something lost in translation when he says, oh, this is illegal now. I'm not sure. And there may be something that sometimes the documentary people may have cut this up. But the part that he was complaining about, I think, a lot is that this contract lasted forever, and then sort of prevented them from doing stuff. That's actually not illegal under California. I don't know what state they picked. This is something that you should know. Like if you're an influencer, you should know they can do what's called a choice of law clause. So that picks what law applies to your contract. So you could live in California, the manager could live in California, or the agency could be in California, but that doesn't mean California law applies. They could say, I want New York law. They could say, I want Utah law or something. If there's some like a lot of states say there has to be some kind of connection, but there are companies that will go. I've seen some where like Utah is an example where Utah law is not as good for people as like the state the company was in. So they put offices in Utah and put their headquarters in Utah, and then all the contracts say, hey, our law of our contract is Utah, and that becomes enforceable. And now you're stuck dealing with whatever Utah decided was the law, where you may live in California or Texas where you otherwise would have a bunch of protections that could depends on the specific issue, but many of them may be gone by them doing that. This perpetual thing, can a contract be perpetual, which means you could just have that contract forever? Yeah, it could. Like here's California law on it. I'll show you. Now it's what's called disfavored. So let's say they pick California, but a lot of states are like this. California is where they were, so I'll just use it. California would let you have a contract that lasted forever. But they disfavor it, which means the courts try to find ways not to do it. But the law is very clear. You can see this is a case. It's pretty recent. It's after the American Gladiators, and I found some from 2021, so it's still the law. It says California cases have long recognized that a contract may, by its express terms, provide for a term of duration of indefinite length and without specific limitation, tied not to the calendar but to the conduct of the contracting parties. So they start basically saying, when they go through all this, if the contract like is clear, if it says, if it's not, there's no vagueness or whatever. If there's vagueness, the courts will try to not have this happen where it's indefinite. But if the contract is like, this contract lasts for 5,000 years, then the courts are like, well, you signed it. And that's kind of in the show. If you watch the American Gladiators, one of the producers has that, like, she has this real nasty cavalier attitude where she's like, well, they signed it. And I don't think that's, basically just like, oh, ha ha, I got these people who had no money and had no jobs and wanted fame in Hollywood, and I got them to sign the shittiest contract on the planet, and now they're stuck with it. Well, you signed it. I mean, that could be the attitude of these people, and it will be the attitude if your manager is a crook, and many of them are. So that is the current law in California. Well, what else? There's one other one where it is not the law, which is called a non-compete. What's a non-compete? So this is a different, and what we're looking at are legal cases here. I'm reading you from court opinions, but this is one that says that a non-compete is when you have a clause in your contract, and they're very common, even if they're not enforceable. People stick them in there. They will say you can't go do any other job ever, or for a certain period of time, and they'll make the time like 10 years. So you basically, okay, if you're an American Gladiator and you're 25, are you going to be running around in the ball at 45 or 40 or whatever? No, you're not. And they'll say you can never compete. If you like in the clause, you have to stay out of this industry forever. Now in California, that's illegal. It can't be enforced. You could actually sue them if they did it. It's because there's this law that was passed, this section 16600, that says that you can't stop someone from engaging in like a legal business or trade, which a trade is just like work. The American Gladiators for that show could have, like, their best bet. I don't think people are as sophisticated now, but like The Rock would have been the best model for them. A couple of them tried to go to acting after they sort of like, they basically were like, our contract's so bad, we're just going to walk if you don't, like, that's the end of the show ends because of that. The biggest gladiators who are the most popular were like, we will leave and quit if you don't give us some merch rights or give us something. And the producers were like, tough. Our show's not about you. It's about these balls and jousts and stuff. And they were like, okay, you're all fired. And the show collapsed because it wasn't about the jousts. People were watching it for Nitro and all these other people. And but the upshot of that is that what they should have done and could have done, and it maybe just wasn't developed back then, is go to like World Wrestling. It was World Wrestling Federation. It was the big competitor. They could have done that. They all had name recognition. The Rock moved around from wrestling to acting. Today, they even comment in the video, the gladiators, they're older now, but now they're all on social media and TikTok, and they're like, if we had this back then, we would have been fine, because they would have built their own platform. But if you are a TikToker and you're building your own platform, you could still get screwed. If you sign with one of these agencies and don't read the contract, you have no idea what's in it. So you got to ask yourself, are you going to be able to afford a lawyer to challenge the contract if you find out that it's terrible? Have you even looked at it? Like, do you know what all the clauses say? Because they're in legal language sometimes. You can't just trust your agent, because a lot of them, I think that people, especially younger people, need to understand that there's a whole, like, Hollywood and the kind of people who, those people have now moved on to social media. The people who used to just be all about actors, they grab anyone who has money. And there are people who look like legitimate managers, who are corrupt. They will try to take over your life. They will try to, if you are successful, they will try to get money from you. This has happened over and over to people in Hollywood. And it is happening right now to people on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever. While you're successful, people are going to want to get you tied into contracts. If you have money to go get a lawyer, but it could be like 100,000, 200,000 to go fight your way out of one of these. There are ways out. Like, even like, let's say a contract is forever. If one of the parties or the other party breaches the contract, so if someone breaches a key part of the contract, they call it a material term, which just means a term that's important kind of to the contract. Well, you can get out of it. Like, that breach of the contract zaps it. So you no longer have any responsibilities back to them. But you got to have a lawyer go prove that, and you have to find a breach, which may or may not exist. There are other ways to get out of these things sometimes. I've gotten people out of, like, this is friends and family. I don't really do this like as a regular thing, but I guess if you came to me with a couple 100,000, I probably would do it. But there are people who I've seen in contracts with like businesses, like small businesses will get targeted for this stuff with perpetual contracts, or contracts that They have what's it's not actually perpetual, but it has what's called an evergreen clause. So a contract could have a clause. An evergreen clause is a little different. It says this contract will automatically renew for a 4-year term at the end of 4 years if you don't do something really hard, like send me a letter via certified mail to this address, and it has to have like the following language in the letter and whatever. And what happens is people forget, and so 4 years later they're like, okay, my contract's up, and they don't realize like, oh, well, you didn't send the letter via the exact method I said to the exact place I said, so sorry, you got another 4 years of paying me whatever you're paying me. And those happen too. That is exploitative, but it is generally enforceable, and you have to get a little creative to try to find a way out of that. And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So if you're an influencer, vet your agency. Don't sign stuff that you haven't read. And frankly, you should take your contract to a lawyer beforehand. And again, I don't do this stuff, so this is not like a pitch for business. Like, I'm not a contracts lawyer. I do consumer protection, which means I'm suing people who like are buying stuff and get cheated. But you should have a lawyer. Like, if you are making enough money to get an agency, it's worth spending a few $1,000s to have some lawyer look at the contract and say, is this even okay to sign? Because that if you see anything in that contract that's even a slight risk of it lasting forever or whatever, like, you could just, your whole influencer career could get either nuked or have this cloud over it of someone who's trying to cheat you, trying to get your stuff, trying to make a claim to a percent of your money forever. That's kind of a lot what they'll do, is try to like, there's various things where they could kind of say, hey, I still get my percentage even after you fire me for 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, or like, you have to pay me expenses or something. And movie studios used to do this. Movie studios would lock up people's projects. Like, if you had a movie or you had a script or whatever, they would spend a couple $100,000 developing it, and they'd be like, you can't get it back until you pay me, or no one else can come take this until the couple $100,000 is paid. So these are examples. And the problem is that if you are not a lawyer, are not going to be able to read that contract and know what's going on. So be careful out there. You could end up like these American Gladiators, where you're older, your career is gone, you could have made a lot of money, but some predator, essentially like a business predator, ran around and grabbed you, or grabbed your stuff and took your money. So that's what to watch out for. I hope that none of y'all get caught in these. If you do, there are ways around it, but it just may be expensive to go try to do it. If you want to see more videos about like legal questions, stuff that you're seeing in TV shows or crazy lawsuits, hit subscribe or hit one of the other videos that are on the end cards, and you'll see one.